Breaking news. After the drone attack in Moscow, Putin told 4 lies to cover it up. On May 30, targets in southwest Moscow and the Moscow region were hit by kamikaze drones more than 500 kilometers from the front line in the Russia-Ukraine war. One of the drones crashed 3 kilometers from the Novo-Ogaryovo presidential residence, targeting a neighborhood populated by Russia's elite. Russian President Vladimir Putin rehashed his standard disinformation talking points in response to questions about the drone strike that he was asked that very day. Here are 4 of those myths, and why they're not true. Claim number 1. Putin started off by insulting Ukrainian independence and blaming the West for inciting anti-Russian sentiment in Ukraine. According to the author, basically, the territory that is called Ukraine was virtually controlled from the very beginning by people who, being led by the West, took the path of not just confronting Russia, but creating a anti-Russia on that territory. This is not true. Ukraine's social, political, and economic elites have been split between pro-Western and pro-Russian factions since the country gained independence in 1991. The presidential election in Ukraine was a glaring example of this discord because the position of president controls the country's foreign and domestic policies. Ukraine has been led by 3 pro-Western presidents in its 32 years of independence. Viktor Yushchenko, 2005 to 2010, Petro Poroshenko, 2014–2019, and Volodymyr Zelensky, 2019. Leonid Kravchuk, 1991–1994, and Leonid Kuchma, 1994–2005, 2 presidents of Ukraine who sought middle ground between the West and Russia, also served for 14 years. For 4 years, from 2010 to 2014, pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych ran Ukraine. Protests on Kyiv's Euromaidan Square began after he reneged on an association agreement with the European Union in November 2013. Claim number 2. Russia, Putin said, had been promised by NATO that it would not be forced to retreat eastward. Although we were assured there would be no NATO expansion to the east, the alliance has now invaded Ukraine. That is not true either. False assurances were never made. In 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, was formally established through the signing of the Washington Treaty. There is a provision that says the parties may, by unanimous agreement, invite any other European state in a position to further the principles of this treaty and to contribute to the security of the North Atlantic area to accede to this treaty. As far as we know, NATO has maintained its open-door policy. No other treaty has been signed by the United States, European Union, or Russia that includes provisions for NATO membership. In an interview with the Russian government website Russia Beyond in 2014, former Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev confirmed that the West never promised the Soviet Union that NATO would not expand to the east. During that time period, the term NATO expansion was never mentioned or discussed. When I say this, I mean every word of it. Even after the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact in 1991, no country in Eastern Europe raised the issue. Even Western leaders didn't raise the issue. Clinton renounced a 1997 gentleman's agreement with Boris Yeltsin, the Russian president, that no former Soviet republics would enter NATO. Claim number 3. Putin also claimed that Ukraine was to blame in 2014's Donbass conflict. Russia's response to the war in Donbass was necessitated by the fact that it had been started by the Kiev regime in 2014. Russia's covert seizure of Ukrainian government buildings in April 2014 prompted Kiev to launch an offensive in the eastern Donbass region. Russian intelligence operative Igor Girkin, alias Strelkov, claimed in an interview with the German publication Der Spiegel in March 2015 that he convinced Putin to unleash a war in eastern Ukraine. "I was the one who pulled the trigger for war," he claimed. During that interview in April of 2014, Strelkov claimed to have joined by armed irregulars from Russia and marched from Crimea to the provincial city of Sloviansk, in Donbass. Strelkov claimed that, in the beginning, nobody there wanted to fight, and that his armed group had attacked a police station in Sloviansk to spark the initial clashes with Ukrainian security forces. After that, Russia began providing the illegal armed formations in Donbass with weapons, ammunition, and funding. Russia has deployed T-64 tanks, multiple BM-21, Grad, multiple rocket launchers, and other military vehicles to eastern Ukraine, the United States Department of State confirmed on June 13, 2014. The European Court of Human Rights ruled on January 25 that Russia had authority over the areas of Donbass that had been seized by separatists in the spring of 2014. Claim number 4. Putin insisted that Russia never targets civilian infrastructure when attacking Ukraine. We are using long-range precision weapons to attack Ukrainian territory, specifically targeting storage facilities for military supplies like ammunition and fuel and lubricants. That is not true either. In Ukraine, the Russian military is destroying civilian buildings like homes, schools, and hospitals. Thousands of Ukrainian civilians have been killed by Russian military strikes since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022. Amnesty International's Secretary-General Agnes Callamard made the following proclamation on February 26, 2022, one day after Russia invaded. Ballistic missiles and other explosive weapons with wide area effects have been used by the Russian military in heavily populated areas, demonstrating a callous disregard for civilian lives. Possible war crimes in some of these assaults. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights reports 23,606 civilian deaths in Ukraine as of May 8, 2023. The large-scale armed attack by the Russian Federation killed 8,791 people and injured 14,815.